Hello, everybody. It is April 8th, and I want to thank you for tuning in. And I hope that I can get through this quickly and try to keep them short. I do want to say, as a reminder, the purpose of my effort is to continue a conversation that is a lot of times about politics, but a lot of times it's about the decisions that we're making in life, whether it's financial or whether it is um, uh, faith based, or we're going to talk about science. So let's have a conversation. Let's not shout somebody else down and the loudest person gets a chance to win. That is that's not healthy for our society. And I did take some questioning about self-reliance. I talk about self-reliance and I must be denying that God exists. Nope. I get up every morning and I start the day with prayer, and I end every morning with prayer. And during the course of the day, I am constantly in thought and prayer back and forth. Part of that worship does include almost 100% of the time listening to a faith-based radio station. I do have a lot of telephone calls while I'm on the road during the day as well. But my day is a continuation of being blessed and filled with the Holy Spirit. Our Heavenly Father, our Savior, Jesus Christ, is alive and well. I also know that George Washington, as an example, believed in taking care of yourself, being responsible for yourself. And I also know that George Washington loved the Lord. And there are many people, I use that example because there are many people from our founding fathers to today, and there seems to be this erosion of, if you say a certain thing, then you must mean the way I heard it. That's not true. Current events of today. So the President Trump has done a pretty good job. Yeah, I think he has. And I took some heat yesterday in regards to the difficulties of the job that President Trump has during this time. And I would say that when I take Ben Franklin's suggestion where you put President Trump at the top of the list, say good things and bad things, and start making a list of the good decisions for this particular case, it's pretty overwhelming. He has done a great job. And I had a discussion recently with a loved one, and it ended somewhat abruptly. And it went something like this. Listen, in a pandemic, I'm going to listen to a scientist before I'm going to listen to some real estate businessman. And the thing is that the scientist was wrong in this case. Dr. Fauci seems like a nice gentleman, but he was in the middle of February telling people on CNN, Americans don't have anything to worry about. Donald Trump had already shut down travel from China. He was saying certain things in public, certainly to try to keep a positive attitude for us, although all the information that he received was incorrect, just like Dr. Fauci received was incorrect. But President Trump's instincts on shutting down travel from China, on shutting down travel from Europe, based on the information that he had, his instincts were much better and much more accurate than what all the models suggested. Now, the hydroxychloroquine, and I happened to see the Michigan representative last night in an interview talking about and crediting President Trump for saving her life because he was mentioning that. And it is unfortunate. She happened to mention people before politics. Okay, that's a great quote, and I'd like to think that it's happening, but we seem to have this Trump hate derangement syndrome going on. Time for a movie quote. You know, I love movies, and I got love in my heart for movies. I learned so much from movies, especially things that really impact me. And one of my CWC teammates, Andrew Lay, had sent this one out, and this sums it up. If you remember back to the movie Vacation. So Clark Griswold and his son Russ Griswold are sharing a beer overlooking the Grand Canyon, and Russ asked Clark, Dad, why does the government ruin everything it touches? And, well, Russ, Clark says, people can't seem to figure out that government is a monopoly. that has no incentive to be effective, efficient, accountable, or to improve because it's funded by taxes that we pay involuntarily. And well, if we don't, they put us in prison. A classic example of when I say that all of these things are happening right in front of us in movies. The people in power and influence, they'll get in front of the TV or at a public stage, and they'll give a speech, and then they're praised one way or the other. If the media likes them, they praise them. If the media doesn't like them, they say, "Oh, we need to be cautious of this." The FDA is a great example of what Clark Griswold in Vacation was explaining. The FDA has gotten it so wrong so often. Let's start with this particular crisis. Prior to the crisis, when I was able to watch golf on a Sunday afternoon, every commercial break, there was one or sometimes two pharmaceutical advertisements. Every single one of those pharmaceutical advertisements would go on in length. Yes, we're going to try to help you with your cirrhosis, whether it's arthritis or it's your some sort of a congestive health issue. You can't breathe right. I mean, I can't think of the terms that they would use, but the side effects almost always seem to be worse than dealing with the issue, which can include like comas and death in some cases. So these are the potential side effects of these drugs that are approved by the FDA, and they're on every single commercial. And I remember when our son was about 3 years old and he was playing in front of the TV and he heard that rattled off about the side effects can include. And as a 3-year-old, he chuckled and laughed and said, "The side effects are worse than the disease." And I said out loud, out of the mouths of babes, because even a 3-year-old could figure it out. So the FDA has no problem approving things to try to make a little improvement in your life, but it could also add some other side effects. But don't worry, we've got drugs for those too. And yet, in the hydroxychloroquine case, and the American Medical Association and Dr. Fauci and just about everybody they could run up there continue to say, whoa, hold on. We don't want to go there yet. With HCQ, we don't want to go there yet. It hasn't been approved. We need much more testing. And yet what the facts are is that this drug has been used for like 65 years. Every healthy individual that goes to Africa or goes to a malaria-stricken country, and I have had family members that have done this, so they're healthy, they get it prescribed to them to take before they go, while they're there, and when they return. And no known side effects. Oh, I'm sorry. The little known side effect is that if you take extreme doses, you might get an uncomfortable rash. And I do mean, the truth is that it's so minuscule, it's not even worth mentioning. Dr. Oz is on board with this. A number of doctors that are getting suppressed from being able to share this. Also, you have additional fear-mongering within the FDA and the American Medical Association, because we couldn't possibly not have to spend $80 or $100 billion on a new treatment. We have to spend that money. We just got it cleared with the CARE Act. And so they'll tell you that, well, with that Z-Pack, then there's going to be a situation where you could have a heart attack or you could have issues with your heart. Listen, no one, not even the president, is ever suggested you use hydroxychloroquine without the assistance of a doctor. But how excited were any of us that listened to the Stanford interview with the Stanford staff member whose fellow epidemiologist, he referred to him as the world's finest epidemiologist in southern France, used hydroxychloroquine on 40 severely infected COVID-19 patients with a 100% success rate. He stated in that interview, I'm declaring we have a cure right now for this, to fight this disease. Nobody talked about it. As a matter of fact, when the president did talk about it, he was chastised. The FDA has, I mentioned Oxycontin. The FDA has consistently approved things. It was created to try to protect us. The only thing it's done is to help make sure that people of money and influence continue to get past whatever they want. And if we really look at the FDA, it is just another example of so much red tape and bureaucracy that's not doing what it's expected to do, to quote Clark Griswold. Now, the congratulations tonight is for America. The congratulations tonight is for the United States of America, the good old US of A. We're cutting the red tape. We're cutting the bureaucracy. And we have been disciplined in our social distancing. And we've done a good job of bending that curve. And I know people are still dying. I know that there's still an issue on in the state of Michigan. I don't know if this is true or not. I have not been able to find out, but there are people saying that the Attorney General is stating that any doctor that decides to practice hydroxychloroquine just to treat COVID-19 patients is going to be sued by her. I haven't had a chance. This just came in prior to me being able to get online to do this. I haven't had a chance to check that out, but I am asking anybody that does know, certainly, and I have a great team that does a lot of research for me, much better research than I am, and we'll be able to verify it. I did hear on Monday that the boat launches in Michigan were closed, and then I was told today, nope, and as a matter of fact, they were open, which I think is great. I did, however, hear that people that are within 6 feet of each other outside of the same household were getting fined. I'm still waiting to see a clarification on that or not. I will say this about law enforcement in the state of Michigan. Being somebody who's in transport, and I get a chance to see a lot of visual presence of law enforcement, a lot of state troopers out there. And I really appreciate the fact that I see a lot of state troopers, and I feel better just by seeing them along the roadway, because people a lot of do a lot less stupid stuff. And but I don't see them pulling over a lot of people and asking them where they're going and stuff. I mean, I really think it's an example of our law enforcement is being respectful of the citizens of the state of Michigan, because I'm not even so sure that this is legal. I mentioned this before. Our constitutional rights are being suppressed. And I asked a question today to a few people. Where are the attorneys that are willing to take up the civil suits right now against our state and against our federal government? Because this is causing irreparable damage to an economy, to livelihoods, to lives. And the people that are most at risk are our middle and lower income classes, and we are struggling. The pain that is out there right now, the pain that is happening because people cannot open up their shops. They had a good life until we decided to shut this state down. I think that it really is an illegal act, and it's criminal, and it is an assault against our citizenry. I would really like to see somebody step up and from a legal basis test this. I really would. But the celebration needs to continue, folks. We are the United States of America. And way back when I started this, I was on record as saying, we're gonna make mincemeat out of this issue, this virus. We are not Italy, Spain, France, even England. We are not a socialized single-payer system. And that's the reason why we've been able to take those models and destroy that information they gave us. I will say this. People want to tell me all the time and be critical of my faith and say, science, you got to look at the science. Well, I'll tell you this. Science has never disproven my faith, ever. It's only reaffirmed my faith. The Bible has been proven through science correct time and time again by many people, many much smarter than I am. Science is the same thing that has difficulty telling us how much it's going to rain or snow. Science is the same discipline that has all these models. We put all this stuff in. A hurricane is a slow moving act of nature. We try to tell you where it's going to land. It's not that accurate. It's not that accurate. We joke around about it often, that the weather people, and bless their heart, I really wish I would have decided to take my earth science degree further and become a weather person. Anybody that can be wrong 50 or 60% of the time and still keep a job, just be able to read the teleprompter. That's probably my biggest struggle that I would have, maybe I couldn't have made it. Maybe I'd made the right choice. But the United States of America, through private industry, being able to assist the government, especially when the government gets out of the way, is going to allow us to have more tests. Oh, and let's talk about tests for a quick minute. When the FDA got it wrong again. The FDA stated that you could only use the CDC's test at the beginning of this whole crisis. The CDC had a test to be able to test you for COVID-19. Problem was, some numbers tell us 80%, some numbers tell us 90% of those tests didn't work. But it was illegal because the FDA was forcing you to have to use the CDC test. Thank goodness again, President Trump called on private industry to go out, and Abbott Labs, and there's a number of other ones, to start creating these tests, the 5 and the 15-minute tests. We were waiting for weeks before we were going to get information. That's the power of the United States of America. That's the power of a still somewhat free economy, private industry, and a healthcare system that is a private healthcare system. It also shows how much more bureaucracy we need to eliminate. And I will say, we have a lot more bureaucracy that we need to eliminate. I have mentioned on this podcast about the certificate of need and the monopoly that the health providers in the state of Michigan, and I think it's 38 other states, already have. So there's a lot of things that this is a victory for the United States, because we get a chance to really evaluate some of these things. And a lot of people keep telling me, Jim, it doesn't matter. We're not going to make a difference. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. An update on Monday night, I asked a number of people to call their local representatives and senators. And we need to stay on this. The update was that they formed a task force. The governor here in Michigan was asking for the ability to arbitrarily be able to extend the time period and extend have single control over the entire lockdown of the state, shelter at home. And thank goodness our Michigan legislation said, no, that's not going to happen. They formed a task force. And some of the things that I'm hearing, and I'm really hopeful, is that we're going to be able to start opening up, where possible, our economy. Let's get Michigan back to work. And how that happens is, we need you to call. We need you to get engaged with your representatives, your state senator, your state rep, and we need to express to them our need to save the lives of the citizens of Michigan by getting us back to work. The most vulnerable in our state are our middle class and our lower class wage earners, because we typically live on a very tight budget. And this was not our fault, but it's going to be still weeks before we get help from the government. And, I'm on record as saying I don't even think it's right. We shouldn't have shut this thing down. We should have kept the small businesses should have kept going. Every small business is connected to a bank. The SBA could have been giving that money through the banking system right to the employer, as long as they kept all of their employees on, kept them insured. We flooded the unemployment system. So We had a system that was already in place. It was called the national economy and full employment. We could have reached so many people through that connectivity, employers to employees, employees to employers, and we let that go. I'm so thankful for how God has continued to bless the United States of America, and I'm so thankful for my fellow citizens. I'm asking you to take action. I'm asking you to call your local rep and your local senator, and let's get Michigan back to work. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you subscribing. I'm asking you, if you like it, share it with somebody else, and I appreciate you viewing all together. I'm James Detroit, and I'm out.